In writing, there are 3 kinds of character arcs: the positive arc, the flat arc, and the negative arc. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down all 3 of the different kinds and several subsidiaries of them. So let's get started. Sup peoples, and welcome back to another video. In this video, we are going to be actually talking about positive flat character arcs. I know that a lot of writers have heard that flat character arcs are bad, and I actually really believed that until I did research for this video, but now I've realized that there are a lot of options for flat character arcs that are actually really intriguing. So stay tuned for that bit. But let's get started with the most common type of character arc, the positive arc. This is where your character grows into a better version of themselves over the course of the story. Pretty much every main character follows some version of this. Now, we're going to be talking about 2 kinds, the growth arc and the redemption arc. But we're starting with the most common of the most common, which is the growth arc. Now, just because this is the most common type of character arc doesn't mean it's simple by any stretch of the imagination. It's actually one of the hardest to pull off. But I think that there are some characters out there who really nail it. And one of my favorites is Boonchuy from Amphibia. So I'm going to be breaking down her character arc as an example of this. So spoilers for Amphibia if you haven't seen it yet. The way that this arc works is basically confrontations and backslides. A confrontation is when the character's beliefs are challenged, and a backslide is when they backslide into their flaws and insecurities anyway. So through this, you're able to create sort of like a roller coaster effect, which I talked about a bit in my What Writers Can Learn from Amphibia video, without even realizing that this was a technical thing. I just thought it was coincidental and good writing. But now I realize this is exactly the formula of the growth arc, which is exactly what Anne Boonchuy follows. The first step of this arc is the lie. For Anne, this is believing that if she doesn't do what her friends want, they won't be her friends anymore. Then is the first confrontation, when this lie is challenged. For Anne, it's meeting Sprig, who is her friend no matter what. But if it was that simple to get over the lie, it wouldn't be a rewarding character arc, and so we have the first backslide. Anne doesn't meet Sprig and instantly let go of the lie. Instead, her insecurities convince her that the lie is true despite Sprig. This pattern of confrontation and backslide continues several times until eventually the confrontation is not met with a backslide, but instead by the truth, which is when the character finally lets go of the lie for good. What this means in less technical jargon talk is that your character is going to have a lie they believe. For Anne, like I said, this is thinking that friendship is built off of doing things for other people and not like a compromise, which is illustrated from her backstory with Sasha primarily. We see this as a flaw, but Anne sees this as the truth. She thinks that friendship is based off of doing what other people want from you, otherwise they're not going to be your friends anymore. And she even says this in the first episode to Sprig in one way or another. She basically comes into the world of Amphibia and tells Sprig, yeah, people are only your friends so long as you do what they want. And Sprig's like, oh, well, I don't know if I fully believe that, but I want to be your friend. So he sort of goes along with what she wants, and she becomes the Sasha. So that's the first confrontation, meeting Sprig, who wants to be her friend and doesn't follow those rules, but she still thinks that they're true and backslides into believing them anyway, and sort of forces them onto Sprig. They then get into trouble, and it's sort of shown to us that this is not how it's supposed to be, it's just what Anne thinks is true. Throughout the story, we're going to see this repeated over and over again, when we see her try and maybe be more responsible, and then sort of be selfish again, and try and be responsible and be selfish again. Anne is a very flawed protagonist, especially in the beginning. And this is one of the things that I really liked about Amphibia. You shouldn't be afraid to have your character have a flaw they need to overcome. Because a perfect character isn't, like, we won't empathize with them. When I saw how flawed Anne was, it made me excited for the future because I knew she had a potential to really evolve. Whereas if she started out great, she'd just sort of remain the same throughout the story. Or worse, she'd start great and end even more great, just perfect character all the way through. Which, I mean, maybe some people like, but I don't personally. And I feel like most people complain about perfect main characters. Now, over the course of the series, we do get to see Anne become more mature, which is why in the final season, when she goes back to Earth and is shown to be so much more mature, it's believable. We can see her character evolution and her character growth until finally at the end of the last episode she tries to sacrifice herself. And that seems fitting because she has matured so much. She's no longer selfish. She knows what true friendship means, which I know is like the message behind every cartoon, but it still works. You know, it can be the message behind every cartoon. Be nice to other people. It's a pretty good message. It really feels meaningful and the events feel impactful, and we're really rooting for the characters, even though it has such a simple message and universal one. And I think that that is because of the roller coaster. Anne doesn't realize her ways are flawed and then become better. It's a long and bumpy road. It's about her messing up just as much as it is about her succeeding. So you really want to think about the way that her arc, or your character's arc, can be made difficult. What stands in their way? And if it's themselves, that's even better. Your character arc is often about internal conflict, not external conflict. Think about how their character can face themselves and battle their own inner demons. Now, the next positive character arc is my personal favorite of all character arcs of all time, and I'm sure that a lot of you watching this also have favorite characters who have followed this character arc, and that is because the redemption arc is just amazing. When it's done well, so impactful and meaningful, and the characters become truly iconic. Think about Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. He has one of the greatest redemption arcs of all time, in my opinion, and I feel like a lot of people share that opinion. The way it's written, the internal conflict, everything, it's so good. It's just so well done. I have a lot of videos where I talk about Zuko as a character and as a good example of a redemption arc. You can check out my How to Write Villains video, or any number of shorts I've done on my channel. I pretty much talk about Zuko all the time. So if you haven't seen one of those, that probably means you're not subscribed yet, which you should definitely hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next time that I talk about Zuko's redemption arc. Because unfortunately, I'm not doing that today. Today, I'm going to be talking about a different character, because I think that the confrontations are extra clear in his story, and that is Soren from The Dragon Prince. But there are so many characters that have great redemption arcs that you can look at for reference. Characters like Loki, Zuko, Hunter from The Owl House, Catra, Scorpia. There's pretty much every villain in She-Ra and the Princess of Power has some sort of a redemption arc. Whether they actually get redeemed or they just sort of lean towards redemption, it depends. But if you're interested in that, you can check out my What Writers Can Learn from She-Ra About Writing Villains video. Or the What Writers Can Learn from She-Ra About Writing Heroes video, because I talk about Catra's redemption in that as well. Lots of redemption arc talk on my channel. I love talking about villains, and especially redeemed ones. I do need to talk about Soren more though, so let's get on to that. Now, this arc, the redemption arc, starts the same as the growth arc, with your character believing a lie. Except this time, they've been pushed more towards evil by it than just needing to grow past their flaws, like with the growth arc. The lie that Soren believes is that to earn his father's love, he has to carry out the villainous tasks that he sets him. The first confrontation of this is when Viren, his father, asks him to do something truly terrible: kill Callum and Ezran. Soren is clearly conflicted, but he backslides nonetheless and chooses to carry out the mission anyway. The second confrontation of his beliefs is when Soren is injured by the dragon in Season 2, and he admits that it's probably for the best, because now he can't do anything terrible. That scene was like the moment when I really started liking Soren, because it showed so much depth to him. Like the first time watching the show, I didn't really like Soren in Season 1. I was just like, oh, he's just sort of like the comic relief character. But then once I realized where his arc was going to go, and I went back and rewatched the show, I realized how many clues were laid along the way, and how much room for like growth and character development there was, and now he's my favorite character. I'm also just a sucker for redemption arcs. So like all my favorite characters, like I love Hunter from The Owl House, I love Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender, my favorite She-Ra character is Catra. You know, I just love redemption arcs a lot. But despite the fact that Soren was ready to give up walking ever again just so that he couldn't do anything terrible, after Claudia heals him, he backslides anyway, returning with her to speak with Viren. Now he's shaken though, and prepared for the next step, the truth. When Soren tells Claudia about what Viren asked him to do, Claudia is clearly upset, but Viren says that Soren must have misunderstood him, blatantly insulting his son's intelligence and acting as though the horrible mission he had sent him on never existed in the first place. This finally cements in Soren's mind that nothing he does for his father will ever be good enough, and that he doesn't want to be like him anyway. Now, unlike in the growth arc, after the truth comes 2 more steps, because before a character can be truly redeemed, they have to prove themselves worthy of it. To earn his redemption, Soren frees Ezran from captivity after Viren ascends to the throne, and later fights against his father, even going so far as to kill an illusion of him which he thought was real, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is no longer on the villain's side. And so, he is redeemed. And then they usually get a happy ending, which is the next step after. But we haven't seen the ending of the Dragon Prince, so who knows? I'm very excited though. The next season looks awesome, and I'm really, really excited about it. So, in honor of the next season, let me know if you want a What Writers Can Learn from the Dragon Prince video, because I would be more than happy to do a breakdown of pretty much all of those character arcs. There are so many wonderful characters. I will probably spend most of it talking about Soren, because I have to, but I'll also talk about Viren and Claudia, because they're awesome, and how creepy Erebos is, and how much his theme is the best, and Callum, and Ezran, poor Ezran, and Rayla. Like, there's just so many good characters in that show. You can tell it was written by the same people who wrote Avatar: The Last Airbender. But with the redemption arc, and specifically Soren's arc, I hope that you could see these specific times that the confrontation and the backslide occurred. I tried to lay it out as clearly as possible, but I'm not the most technically minded person in the world, so fingers crossed I got across right. I chose his arc as the example because I feel like the confrontation and the backslides are so clearly laid out. Now, you can have more than 3. It's more about these big moments where the character is faced with the truth, but chooses the lie instead. But each time, it becomes harder for them to choose the lie, until eventually they have to embrace the truth, no matter how painful. Realizing that Viren will never really be the dad he once knew, or that, nothing he does will be good enough, or that his father is straight up evil, is not easy. But embracing that truth and abandoning the lie is an important part of a redemption arc, and most character arcs. Now, what can we learn from both of these examples about writing a positive character arc? First up, the lie is crucial. Knowing what the lie is for your character will tell you a lot about them, as well as how to challenge both them and their beliefs. The second thing that I learned from this is that backsliding isn't a negative thing, it's actually a positive thing. It gives their character arc emotion and meaning. It makes their character arc a character arc instead of a moment. You want multiple character moments inside of the character arc, and each backslide and confrontation is exactly that. It's when they're being challenged and they make the wrong decision. And as viewers and readers, that's actually really impactful and meaningful. If Zuko was evil and then met Aang and was like, you know what, I should actually be a good guy now, I don't think that that would really have the same impact as watching him struggle with himself for several seasons before finally realizing that he's been fighting for the wrong thing all along. Now, after positive arcs comes flat character arcs. The middle ground between positive and negative, sort of like a neutral character arc. Now, as I said in the beginning of this video, most writers have probably heard that these are bad, and I actually believed that for the longest time. And while some flat character arcs are bad, there are actually some really good ones out there too. Basically, if a flat character arc is intentional, you're trying to have a flat character arc, then it's probably a good thing. If you're trying to have a growth arc or a redemption arc or some kind of negative arc, but it reads as a flat arc, then that's probably a bad thing. It's all about intention. A flat character arc because you didn't execute the character arc properly is bad, but an intentional character arc that's flat is of course going to be good because that was your intention with your story. Now, I haven't used this character arc myself yet, but I'm very excited to. I learned about it while doing research for this video, and that is the Assailed by Doubt arc. I think it's really fascinating, and it is probably my favorite of the flat character arcs that I've heard about so far, just because it feels the most emotionally meaningful. Whereas most character arcs start with a lie, this one starts with the character already knowing the truth. For example, let's use Captain America. Cap has some pretty solid and unflinching beliefs, primary among which are justice and freedom. Instead of having backslides, his arc has challenges, events or people that challenge his beliefs and make him second-guess himself, but he pushes through anyway. The first confrontation, for example, is if he's willing to die for his ideals and the people he cares about. His challenge is plunging into the ice and proving that he is. But I want to focus on the second one, because it has two parts, Bucky and S.H.I.E.L.D., a person and an event. The first part of the confrontation in this scenario is Bucky, who despite his evil actions now, Cap knew as a close friend. He has to wonder, is he putting people in danger by trying to help Bucky? Is he blinded by their old friendship and ignoring justice? His beliefs are challenged. Then, at the same time, he's discovering that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been corrupted and has to leave behind the life he's built for himself to stand by his ideals of justice and freedom. But despite all of this, Cap stays true to himself, and that's what makes his arc flat. That no matter what conflicts come his way, internal or external, he stays true to himself. And in this way, it makes a flat arc interesting. It's not flat because of a lack of internal challenges. It's flat because your character pushes through those internal challenges anyway. The Assailed by Doubt arc is the perfect name for it because it is exactly what it is. Your character is assailed by doubts, but they push through anyway. It's interesting because I always thought of a flat arc as sort of being flat all the way through. But this is more an arc with bumps in it, like a roller coaster, like, say, a growth arc or a redemption arc. But the idea is that what keeps it flat is the fact that after each bump, it flattens out again, and your character goes back to knowing the truth. It's like the challenge is keeping it flat, if that makes sense. In my own story, I now realize that there's this character that I've been trying to give a growth arc that I shouldn't be trying to give one to. They actually need this arc, the Assailed by Doubt arc, and it fits their character so much better. I had been thinking that the fact that they were sort of knowing the truth already and sort of flat was a really negative thing, and that I had to change that. Every time I'd write a scene with them, I'd try and write in some sort of internal conflict that they had to overcome, but none of it felt right for them. There's nothing wrong with a flat arc, I realize now. My character can have a flat arc. I can make it interesting by making it an Assailed by Doubt arc. They were naturally set up for that, and I was just not noticing it the whole time. I'm excited to go back and do some rewriting and fix that, so this character can have the arc that they deserve. A flat one. Now, the second kind of flat character arc that I'm going to be talking about in this video is the action character arc. This arc doesn't really have an arc. Instead, it's a character who leads a story, but doesn't really change over the course of it. Their beliefs aren't challenged, and their goals don't change. So the key to this arc is all about making a solid base for your character in the first place. They need a strong personality, complete with flaws, strengths, quirks, and other personality traits that make them an engaging character that's good for highlighting your chosen type of story. There's not too much to say about this one, honestly. It's not going to have backslides and confrontations or challenges or whatever you want to call them. And I think that's what the action character arc is for. Instead, it's just about building a good base character that can show off the plot of your story. Maybe you have a really intense mystery, and your readers are reading the book for a mystery, not for character development. So then maybe an action character arc would work better for you. You can have a character that's just there to show off your mystery, which you've finally crafted and that your readers are going to love, because that's what their focus is on. I'm personally more of a character-based reader. I do like mystery, but I'm not a plot-based reader, so I'm never going to pick up a mystery novel. But a lot of people are, and there's no shame in that. Different people like different things, and I would never say that a mystery book is bad. I think that mystery novels are awesome. They're just not my cup of tea. And I think they take a lot of skill to write. They're just not what I want to write. So I'm not saying an action character arc is bad in any way, just by saying that I personally wouldn't use one. They are wonderful, just not for the kinds of stories that I write. Now, what can we learn about flat character arcs from these two examples? I think that the number one thing to learn from this is that you need a strong base. A strong base for your character arc, with a flat arc especially. With any character arc it's important, but with a flat arc it is crucial. If you have a character, especially in like an action character arc, it's sort of like a blank, fully blank canvas, they're not really going to be memorable. You want a character who is complicated, even if they don't evolve. They still need to have flaws and personality traits and quirks, even if those things aren't going to change over the course of the story. So a strong base character is super important for this sort of a story. The second thing to keep in mind is don't give a character a flat arc with no reason. I think that your intentions are super crucial when it comes to executing a flat arc correctly. If a character has a flat character arc because you didn't feel like giving them a character arc, then it's probably going to read as flat in a negative way. But if you give them a flat character arc, like an Assailed by Doubt arc or an action character arc, very intentionally because that suits your story, then I think that it will be just as impactful as any other kind of character arc. The third thing is not to be fooled. They are not easy. I think that when you hear flat character arc, you either think bad or you think easy. And they don't have to be either of those things. I mean, they're definitely not going to be easy, and they don't have to be bad. So don't give your character a flat arc for any reason other than that fits what you need for your story and that character. The next kind of character arc that we're going to be talking about in this video is the negative character arc, and I actually have 3 examples of this one. Think about how many favorite characters you have, and then ask yourself how many of them are villains. Because I feel like the answer will probably surprise you. Or maybe not. Maybe you already know how many villains you love. Villains are often beloved characters, and that's because being bad is sort of like exciting. I don't mean in real life, like don't be bad in real life, but in an imaginary world, writing a good, really terrifying villain is exciting for both writers and readers. Now, the first negative character arc that we're going to be breaking down is the fall arc. And this is a classic fall from grace sort of thing. It's a character who maybe was good once, but turns evil. Loki is a great example of this character arc, showing someone that while they might want to change, find themselves unable to. So let's use Loki as an example. The first step in these kinds of arcs is the lie, as usual, which in Loki's case is that he is unloved and that no one believes he will ever amount to anything because all of their care belongs to his brother, Thor. Classic jealous sibling vibes. The next step is to find something that cements this lie in the character's mind. For Loki, this is discovering that he is a frost giant. It supports the lie that he believes and allows it to consume him. Think about it. If your character is good, but they're going to have a fall arc, they're good, but they still believe in the lie. They're at that same point that, say, the growth arc would be taking. It's sort of like the evil sibling of the growth arc. Both of them start with your character here. They believe a lie, but they're still a good person. Now with the growth arc, your character goes up and fights a lie and defeats it and learns the truth and is like, yay, I'm so happy and a good person. But with the fall arc, the character starts in the same place as the growth arc, as a good person believing a lie, but they fall. You know, the platform just goes, oh, you believe a lie? Okay. And they just plop right down. Finally, the character has to take action on the lie. For Loki, that means spinning a web of lies about Odin's death, taking the throne, and then setting out to destroy the frost giants. In his mind, all of this will make Odin love him, but in reality, he's just falling deeper and deeper under the lie's sway. Now, the key to this is having moments where your character is shown grappling between the truth and the lie, like how Thor tries to save his brother, but Loki rejects his offer of help and falls to his supposed death. This arc works pretty much exactly like the growth arc, but in reverse. It's the same as before. The character is shown grappling between the truth and the lie, but they choose the lie, and then they're shown grappling between the truth and the lie, but they choose the lie, except at the end, with the growth arc, they choose the truth, finally, after all this hardship. And with the fall arc, despite all of these times they've been shown the truth, they still believe in the lie, and they discard the truth for good. Or maybe not for good, because characters can totally be redeemed from this. Think about Loki again. Loki has a great redemption arc. He's just an all-around, really fascinating character that I would love to do more videos on. Now, the next 2 arcs I actually don't really have examples for. Unfortunately, haven't watched too many things where the characters are shown to be either corrupted or disillusioned. And that means that I'm going to go out and try and find some more villain-centric stories to watch very soon. But the next one is the disillusionment arc. Now, the closest I can get to this is it's sort of like that meme where, you know the one, right? Where like the character walks up and finds the scroll of truth, but they like don't like the truth. They see the truth and they're like, this is not what I wanted it to be, and then they throw it away. The disillusionment arc is sort of like that. The disillusionment arc, at its core, is tragic. Like most arcs we've talked about here, it begins with the character believing a lie. But unlike most arcs, discovering the truth is not a good thing. It uses the same pattern of confrontation and backslide as the growth arc. Really, the only difference is the end goal. Whereas the growth arc ends with a positive evolution of the character and a happy ending, the disillusionment arc ends with tragedy. The character finds the truth more terrible than the lie they had once believed and completes their fall into darkness. Now, what this means is that it works pretty much the same way as the last arc, like the growth arc and how the fall arc is its evil twin. Your character starts out believing a lie. They grapple with the lie and the truth time and time and time again. But in the end, like with the growth arc, they accept the truth, but it breaks them. They hate the truth. They want to go back to believing the lie because that was easier for them, but they can't. The truth is not a positive thing that gives them a happy ending and a character growth moment that's like, oh yay, I'm a great person now. Instead, it destroys them. It's tragic because they were happy once, but they discovered the truth and it shattered their world. They become a villain or something else bad happens to them in some way like that because of the truth and not because of the lie. Where a lot of villain arcs show a character being tempted by a lie, the disillusionment arc shows your character being broken by the truth. I need to write a character with a disillusionment arc because it sounds really cool. Really sad, but like, isn't that the point of being a writer? Isn't the whole point of being a writer writing really sad things so that your readers cry? Is that not the point? Because if that's not the point, then I think I've been watching the wrong shows. Now, the final arc, the third of the negative character arcs that we're going to talk about, is the corruption arc. This arc begins with the character knowing the truth already. It's sort of like an assailed by doubt arc, but they succumb. In this arc, the confrontations are when the character is tempted by evil. The backslides are when the character chooses the truth over the lie, until eventually, after several of these moments, they give in and choose the lie, despite the fact they had once known the truth. Now, what this means in normal person talk is that it's exactly like the growth arc, but a little bit different. It's like it's evil triplet, because the fall arc is its evil twin. It's sort of like the reverse. So if with the growth and the fall arc you start here at the bottom, knowing the lie but able to either grow past it or fall further into it. Here you start at the top. You've already learned the truth. You know that the lie is wrong and you've gotten your happy ending. But then the lie, or maybe a new lie, shows up and tempts you and you're like, no. 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 In fact, I like the lie more. Eventually, you just sort of leave the truth behind. You had achieved that heroic main character growth arc, but eventually you discard that and you choose the lie instead. I think it would be sort of interesting to show, like, maybe like in a two-part series, like a character growing past the lie and becoming a hero, and then the second book is sort of like the dark side of it, and you show them backslide to the same lie again for some sort of reason. It would be like a very tragic story, sort of like a disillusionment arc. But I think it could be really interesting to explore how a character could fight so hard to get to a place of knowing the truth, only to throw it away again and believe a lie. Now, what can we learn from this? First off, the lie and the truth are used everywhere. All characters believe a lie or a truth, even the flat ones. And figuring out what this is for them is super important, and maybe even where they learned it. What made them think that this lie is true? Or what made them decide the truth was more terrible than the lie? Or what made them decide that the truth was worth throwing away over the lie? Or, there's so many options. But there's sort of, with all characters, going to be a truth and a lie, playing tug-of-war with their growth and their story. Their internal conflict is made up of this truth and lie pulling on opposite sides of a string. And they're just stuck in the middle, like, why is this happening to me? With a character arc like a negative one specifically, you need to really think about taking your time. Sometimes something could happen and your character just goes bad. Maybe something really terrible happens and they become a bad person. But I think that the most compelling villainous arcs are like this slow descent. You see the slow actions taking place. Really take your time with these arcs, and with all character arcs. Character arcs are all about time. You need them to feel gradual, like a roller coaster that takes several years or months or years. Of course, sometimes a big moment can take place and it'll feel natural for your character just to switch like that. I can't actually snap my fingers, so pretend that I did. But a lot of times, these arcs are going to be gradual, and the lie and the truth are going to play tug of war for a really long time. So think about what lie and what truth are big enough that they could play tug of war for that long of a time, and what moments are finally going to push your character over the edge to choose which one they're going to believe in. and how that's going to shape their life. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it helped you out, and I hope that you're now as excited about flat character arcs as I am. And all character arcs in general. They're so interesting, and I'm really excited to get to play around with more of them than I thought existed. If you would like more videos breaking down different kinds of character archetypes or characters in general, that's sort of like my favorite thing to do on this channel. I am a character writer, and I am a character watcher, and a character reader, so I get very excited about that sort of thing. I'm going to put up some videos on the screen for you to check out if you enjoyed this video, and definitely subscribe if you did, because I'm going to be having more content like this every single week. Over here, I'm going to put my What Writers Can Learn from the Bad Batch video, because that feels sort of similar to this one. I'm really proud of it. It talks about character archetypes and how to do them right, and the different ways that you can learn from this show that broke me and that I'm still recovering from. And over here, I will put my most recent video. Who knows, maybe when you're watching this, I'm gray-haired and I'm saying that I'm retiring from YouTube. Or maybe it's gonna be like tomorrow and this will still be my most recent video. Who knows? But whatever you choose to watch next, I hope that you enjoy, and happy writing. I will see you on the next page. Till then.